Kristi, first, let's talk about the significance of you becoming the chairwoman, but also the power structure now within the Colorado GOP, all female. It's historic. Talk about that distinction and the message that it sends to not only the Republican Party in Colorado, but the entire electorate.
Sure. Well, you're right. It's historic being the first woman chairman since the 1970s, the first one in my lifetime. And we're actually the first major political party in Colorado to ever have an all-woman slate of officers. I think it demonstrates our Republican Party here in Colorado is diverse. We represent people of all kinds, and no matter who you are, you can find yourself in the Republican Party.
Yeah, and I think that it's not your father's Republican Party. I mean, for better or worse, people associate the older white male dominance controlling the party. How does your approach to things differ from what people would expect as a traditional Republican leadership position?
Sure. Well, I think as the chairman of the Republican Party, I believe we have to return to being the big tent party. All people of all types should be welcome here in the Republican Party. And we also need to become the party of ideas once again.
And we know that a significant voting bloc now in the just completed presidential election, but frankly, all elections, no matter what the level, suburban women in particular are a huge get. No matter the party, that's who a lot of politicians are targeting. How significant is it a coincidence in terms of trying to build a base?
You know, I don't think so. I am exactly a suburban woman. I have 2 kids, elementary school age. I'm married, have an education in the suburbs of Colorado. That is precisely the swing voter here in Colorado. And we are finding solutions that affect people's jobs, their kids' education on an everyday neighborhood level. That's what moms like me are looking for across Colorado. How does education solutions, how do those solutions affect their children on a day-to-day basis? Are their jobs going to stay here in Colorado? What about their husband's jobs? That matters on an everyday level, and that's what we're standing for as Republicans.
Are you seeing success? I know it's just been a short period of time, but can you quantify that message in growing the party from the female perspective to start, but also people of color and those who are not traditionally Republican?
Absolutely.
I'm not saying women are not traditionally, please don't misunderstand my statement. You understand what I'm saying, that how does your message resonate to try and bring them into the tent?
Absolutely.
Women,
Absolutely. Well, I mean, education is going to be a key issue in 2022. And here in Colorado, Republicans are the party that stands for school choice. We're the party that believes parents make good decisions for their kids, that we should have charter schools, that we should have more options in education. And that is a key issue that resonates with parents of all kinds across our state. And the Democrats really aren't talking about it. They, in the legislative session, slammed down a number of options for parents. And we are seeing great responses across the state when we stand up and say, as a parent, you deserve better educational options for your kids, and we're going to deliver them.
One of the quotes I read from you was improving messaging and outreach to unaffiliated swing voters. We all know now that unaffiliated voters are the largest voting bloc in Colorado. In fact, the Republican Party, depending on what numbers you look at, anywhere from 50 to 100,000 have left the party in the last 5 years for whatever reason, changing affiliation, leaving the state, disgruntled with that position. But at the end of the day, convincing Democrats, Republicans, and unaffiliated voters, that's a different challenge, isn't it?
It is. It's a unique challenge, and I think our party is absolutely up to it in this battleground year of 2022. 40% of Colorado voters are unaffiliated. But unaffiliated voters, if you talk to them, and we talk to them, they show up at the events where I speak across our state. They care about these same issues, educational options for their kids, their jobs and industries staying in Colorado. They're worried about inflation. They don't like seeing the gas prices at the pump and the extra money they're having to pay for frozen food and fruit for their families. These are the issues they care about, and we are speaking to them.
Then how do you explain the shift over the last 5 years to now a Democrat-controlled state legislature, another Democrat in the governor's mansion, flipped Cory Gardner's seat, they voted for Joe Biden this past presidential election, and they are that large voting bloc? What is missing, do you feel, or what do you need to accentuate your message with to try and change that trend?
Yeah, I think there's a couple things. First of all, 2020 was a very nationalized year in politics. Colorado voters care about our state and what affects us here in Colorado. 2022 is going to be a perfect year to talk about Colorado-centric issues. That's what we're going to do. It's what our candidates are going to do. And then I think we have to do a better job defining what it means to be a Republican candidate. And we're going to be releasing a contract with Colorado defining the issues Republicans will deliver on, that people can count on us to deliver better solutions for the future of Colorado. We have to brand ourselves in that way, and it's what we're going to do.
And I just wanted to throw this in because I just learned that, once again, rather than trying to change, let me phrase this a different way. Another recall election is being put together to get rid of Jared Polis, and now they've incorporated the Secretary of State, Jenna Griswold, as well. Do you agree with that after the two previous failed efforts? And in fact, the second one was so bad they never even got any signatures. Is that the way to make change in government, or do you get the message out that, hey, we got an election next year, Governor Polis can be removed through that process? I just want your reaction to yet another recall campaign.
Sure, I think we have to be future focused and a positive party here in Colorado and show that our candidates that we're running in 2022 are better for the state of Colorado. That's where our focus is. It's where my focus is as the chairman, of finding and helping those candidates that can take Colorado into the future. That's what we have to talk about, our candidates and our party.
So you disagree with the process to try and remove Governor Polis for a third time?
You know, at this time, I think our efforts are just better spent talking about the ideas that people in Colorado want to hear about and backing our candidates who can bring those solutions to the table.
Now, another piece of the puzzle that's changing as we speak, the public hearings are going to begin, I think, this week or next on this new redistricting process. At least from the surface, it looks like, from where I come from, Lauren Boebert looks a little bit like she's in better shape. Doug Lamborn, I think, for sure. Ken Buck, maybe a little, you're not sure, because Pueblo, I think, under the one proposed redistricting plan, would move into his district. What's your take on where we are so far on the redistricting and how it may serve or not serve the Republican Party?
Sure. I think redistricting, it's a long process. The people of Colorado voted it to be an independent process where the public can show up and have their voice heard. I think any citizen should go and talk about how these maps affect their communities. What I think we want is what the voters want. It's not a ton of safe Republican or safe Democrat districts. It's competitive seats where the best candidate rises.
What we want to see.
That is what we want to see. So we're encouraging public participation, and we want the commission to continue to draw more competitive seats, because that's what the voters are looking for in Colorado.
Do you think the temperature, the atmosphere of politics these days are pushing more people away from becoming active and showing up at a public hearing to talk about redistricting? What's your take on the electorate and their concern and involvement in the process to basically make these competitive races and put their person or issue front and center?
What I think people are frustrated with is the divisiveness in politics and the disrespect that's often shown, sometimes on both sides of the aisle. Also, what I think people are upset about is the lack of balance in Colorado state government. We have such a supermajority control of Democrats that people's voices are not heard when they show up to the legislature. When they reach out to their representatives and ask them to vote no on bills, the Democrats, ramrod it through anyway and don't listen to people. That's the frustration people are experiencing. As Republicans, we want to restore balance to Colorado and bring solutions, and people are very excited about that. I've traveled over half the state already in my first 3 months, and I have Republicans and unaffiliated showing up excited to change the direction of our state and restore some balance.
And just getting back to the recall, I mean, they're basically saying Governor Polis is a dictator. I don't know if you weighed in on that. It may have been your quote or someone else's, that essentially too much power, it's a dictatorship. We need to move away from that. Your reaction?
I mean, he is a dictator. We call him King Polis all the time for a reason. He governs with an iron fist. He does not listen to people. And I mean, whether we're talking about the scandal in the nursing homes, where he refuses to go on camera and won't answer for what his administration did, or whether we're talking about inflation and taxes and fees on the rise here in Colorado under his leadership. People are suffering, and he's absolutely acting like a dictator to the detriment of average citizens across our state.
Well, he's calling your reaction and others just trying to score cheap political points.
Well, it's very offensive that he would say that over his own administration's scandal when people died at the highest rate in the nation in nursing homes. If he is truly the governor he thinks he is, he should answer for what he's done.
6 months ago today, the January 6th riots, I know you just said that what happens on the national level, and I've heard it from our El Paso County GOP chairwoman saying that's a whole nother smoke. We got to focus on what matters locally, but let's be real about this. It impacts the entire country. This is a conversation about the future of democracy. Do you believe that a congressional investigation of January 6th is the right way to go?
I believe we need to focus on the issues that impact Colorado. When January 6th happened, every single Republican in this state said that violence is never the answer to achieving political goals. And that's what we've continued to say. We need to move on. We need to focus on the issues that affect people here in Colorado, their jobs, their kids' education, and stopping the rising cost of living here in Colorado that's damaging people every day.
People overthrow the process to validate an election they didn't agree with. Why is it not a good idea for those members of Congress whose lives were threatened to be a part of the process to investigate who was behind it and why it occurred?
So I'm the chairman of the Republican Party here in Colorado, and we are going to focus on Colorado-centric issues. As I've said from the beginning, violence is never the way to achieve political goals. We need to get back to talking about Colorado once again. That is what matters here.
Here's a funny irony. The chairwoman of the El Paso County Republican Party, when we asked her about the demotion of Liz Cheney from her leadership position because of her condemnation of President Trump, basically said, keep Washington politics in Washington and we'll take care of our own business. Yet, they have invited Marjorie Taylor Greene to be the keynote speaker at a major fundraiser, basically their biggest fundraiser of the year. Do you agree with that decision?
I'm going to tell you the same thing I tell all media and all people across Colorado. I am focused on what serves Colorado best. And
Does that serve Colorado best?
I'll tell you, the Colorado Republican Party in August is going to release a contract with Colorado that defines precisely what we stand for as Republicans in Colorado. That is what I'm going to talk about as the chairman. That is what our statewide candidates are going to talk about.
One way or the other about her being invited, such a divisive figure, when the Republican Party is trying to grow its base.
I'd love to see the Democrats comment on their divisive figures like Ilhan Omar and
and
Tate Anderson, so many people they bring in.
What's happening in El Paso County?
I'm going to continue to talk about Colorado-focused issues, release the contract with Colorado, and I think instead of debating over national figures, what people really want to hear is solutions to the issues that affect their kids and affect their jobs, and I'm going to keep the conversation centered on that.
Fair enough. I won't keep beating that dead horse, but I gotta ask, will you be attending that dinner, by the way?
I will not be attending it.
Is there a reason why?
I travel the entire state of Colorado, so many events, and I'll be somewhere else that weekend.
Okay. Just my last point on that. The El Paso County Republican Party